Hello everyone, my name is Pojo, and today we have a fun announcement to make. There's a new promo bundle coming out for Eternal with 3 new cards that people will be able to get. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm sure it will be the same sort of play a certain amount of games and get a certain amount of cards for free. The 3 cards that are being introduced, the art for them is on my left and on your right. So that one is Arcanum Monitor. This one is Azindel. So we're actually being introduced to Azindel the Waykeeper, the person who is responsible for Azindel's gift. And finally, we have this Huru operative, whose name is, I don't remember it right now, but we actually have that card to show you, so we'll be showing it at the end of this video. But first things first, let's talk about the really important change. In addition to these 3 new cards that are coming out, which are going to be in new color factions, ooh my, we have a change to the redraw system of Eternal. And this is a pretty shocking upset. Like, the redraw system to Eternal was probably the thing that I had placed bets on being the least likely for Eternal to change, right underneath the overall deck size of 75, because 75 is a pretty good number for having a lot of variance in the game. I've generally felt that, like, with the current 75 dark card decks, we have sort of this feeling where you still can't stuff your deck quite enough. You're still needing space. But what they've ended up doing is, in an effort to improve the situation with new players and with old players in general, to make the randomness of Eternal a little bit more fun, they've improved the redraw system in such a way that people will be getting better hands on the draw and on the redraw. Now, the previous redraw system was you would draw all 7 of your cards. Those would be completely random. And then once you decided to redraw, if you decided to redraw, your hand would contain between 2 and 5 power cards. This had its ups and downs. There were certainly some hands that you could get completely screwed out of. Some of the 5 power and 2 power hands were just not good enough. It was a pretty good system, but the level of variance made people very unhappy. I always considered that if you wanted to change it, my general suggestion was to make sure that the opening hand at least has some amount of power in it, because if you draw those 0 power and 7 power hands, like that's not really a decision that you get to make regarding your hand. That's just, oh, the dice rolled really bad, now you have to roll the dice again. So they've actually decided to make this a real thing, and what now happens is that you draw your opening hand. Your opening hand contains at minimum 1 power and at maximum 6. It cannot contain 7 power and it cannot contain 1. But when you redraw, you will get either 2, 3, or 4 power. So you will no longer get 5 power hands, and that's the main change there. So what that means is that you will always get a hand that is borderline playable in a deck that you have built to be completely reliable. Like, you will get a hand that has some amount of power and some cards that you can play, and it will be sure to be like something that you can actually work with in some fashion. If you're still like a dual colored deck, if you've built any amount of unreliability into your deck at all, if you're not running Seek Power, there are still ways that the deck can definitely screw you, and that's totally fine. That's an acceptable part of card games, and that's also something that you should be prepared for. Like, in general, your deck building should just be good enough that that's not as much of an issue. Now, when you redraw, you're actually guaranteed to get a hand that's going to be quite a bit juicier, or at least quite a bit more reliably good, because 2, 3 to 4 power is about the sweet spot for what you want. You pretty much never want a 5 power hand. There are some situations where it's okay in like larger control hands, but for the most part, this means that you are going to get like the amount of power that you want for a hand and the amount of gas that you want for a hand in your second hand. You won't necessarily get the curve that you want, but you will get playable cards and the ability to play those cards. So it's a pretty interesting and exciting change. I think that it's a really good, I wouldn't say compromise, but I actually think it's even an over compromise from what people wanted and what people like maybe like need to have. I'm really interested to see how it plays out balance-wise. I don't think it will have a huge effect on balance. We've seen a lot of sort of nerfs to aggro lately, and the aggro archetype has slowed down quite a bit. We've seen a lot more slow decks, control decks, combo decks. It's been a really exciting month, really, with a lot of fun, slow games, that kind of thing. So typically, a good mulligan system can really benefit the slow decks, and it can really benefit some of the combo decks and things like that, where if you have a really, really good mulligan, then you can get just exactly the things that you want, or you can get like only so much power, so as a result, like your aggro is that much stronger, and the control decks tend to suffer as a result. But I think this is a good enough compromise that the aggro decks will still have a slight benefit, but at the same time, I think overall, like the hand quality is good enough, and there aren't enough benefits given to any particular archetype that this should play out pretty well on balance. I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I do think that as a boon to new players and as a boon to players in general, like this will make the entire mulligan system feel less random and less directly unfair. And I think that it is substantially less unfair. There are very few games now that you're going to lose just because of a bad hand. There will be some, but I think that a lot of that is going to be things like, did you remember to put Seek Power in your deck? This is something that I talk about a lot. If you have 4 Seek Power in your deck, then those 1 power hands that you get in the opening hand are going to be even more valuable, because you're going to have an even higher chance of drawing like that Seek Power and getting the actual cards that you need to play out your 2 power cards. I think that Seek Power is an even more important card than it used to be, and you should still be putting it in pretty much all of your decks. So yeah, overall, the redraw mechanic seems really sound. I think it's going to be very helpful in making Eternal a popular and just really fun game, and I think if people were somewhat saddened by the redraw system, they should definitely give this one a shot, because what it is right now is, or what it is changing to, is a lot better. It's a really substantial change, and I think it's going to make the game really amazing. So let's talk about these cards. We have Arcanum Monitor, which is the cool little statue thing there. This is a Praxis card. It's fire and primal, and I believe LSV was talking about it on his stream, so we have some stats from those. I don't have a direct card image, so this is definitely still open to change, but the stats that I got for this card are, it is double primal influence and double fire influence, and what it does is it gives all of your other units +1/+1, and then it has +1/+1 for every unit that you have on the board. So that's a very common card game mechanic, and it's a really good design in general. There was a card like this called Squad Strategist in open beta before the Eternal Throne, the big rework. I actually think it was in closed beta. Yeah, this is a really interesting card, and I think it should be pretty cool to play around with. We also have a Huru card, that guy right there, the Huru operative, Rilgon. And actually, let's just go ahead. Oh, we actually have the text on Azindel as well. I didn't notice that we had a mock-up on that. So it looks like we do have information on all 3 of those, which is good. Good. So yeah, like we have Rilgon, the Huru operative, this shiny Huru card, and this one we actually have art for. So let me show that off now. All right, here's Rilgon. Now, this guy, this is not the actual card. This is a mock-up that someone made from the art using a card creator, which we now have for creating custom cards. But the text is from Scarlatch on the Discord, so the CEO of Direwolf Digital has confirmed that this will be the text of the particular card. It is a 2/4 that when you play a weapon on it, it gains Aegis, which immediately, that's a really good effect. Like, that is a very strong effect, because it fundamentally means that if this card doesn't die the turn that it's played, it turns all weapons into advantageous choices, where you basically create a problematic situation for your opponent. Your opponent has to kill Rilgon through damage or through some sort of effect other than a spell, because otherwise he's trading 2 for 2 on your weapon and on Rilgon. So That's pretty cool. That's a very strong effect. Rilgon has enough health to last through most things, especially if he gets a weapon, and that durability is also really important. Um, his overall cost, like the double primal, double justice, is a bit steep on influence. This is the nesting Avasor Patriarch level of influence cost, which makes it a little bit hard to play, but not completely impossible to play on 4. And so that's a pretty strong choice. Rilgon's other ability is that whenever you play a spell, it gains double damage until end of turn. So this makes Rilgon automatically a 4/4 if you are playing a spell. And of course, if you put weapons on Rilgon, he becomes a lot more threatening and a lot more scary. There aren't that many good weapons to put on Rilgon in blue. Cloud Snake Saddle is the only one that I can think of, and you have to basically levitate Rilgon for that to happen. But there are a couple of good green choices, and it should be interesting to see if Rilgon can get into some decks with green and blue and red in them and have a lot of fun. At the moment, I think there are not enough truly fantastic, but just being able to give him double damage and do interesting things with that, like being able to levitate him to make him a 4/4, being able to give him any sort of buff. I think there are a lot of options that make Rilgon really, really scary, and he's durable enough and does enough damage through pressure that I think that he's a very solid card through and through. Just, he's very likely in a blue-green deck that has a lot of spells to be a 4/4 for 4, which is already good enough. And then if you can do anything to synergize with him, he should be a very, very strong choice. So the final card is Azindel the Wayfinder. And that card, we do have some stats on. He is a 4 Shadow, so he's a Xenon card. And he is a 0/5 that gives you +1 maximum power. And whenever a unit enters any void, he gains another +1 maximum power. So that means that he essentially has the Initiate of the Sands ability, and he gains an additional Initiate of the Sands ability for every single card that enters the void. Now, as a card that costs 4, this is pretty decent. He's going to already be something that allows you to go from 4 to 6 pretty quickly. And as a 0/5, he's durable enough, he's sort of on the Staff of Stories end, that he will probably live to see that jump. So that's pretty interesting, and since Xenon decks have a lot of interesting options at 6, Predatory Carnosaur is a good one. You can always play some really big time units. There are some decent shadow units as well. Not anything amazing, but a lot of good stuff happens with Shadow, and Azindel, of course, can get you to Azindel's gift all that much faster, which is really, really nice. But in addition, the ability to just continue gaining power is really beneficial to the whole Xenon archetype. I think that there are some very expensive Xenon cards. In particular, Shadow has a lot of excellent power sinks. The Last Word, not Azindel's gift, but there is an 8-cost card that steals things, Touch of the Umbran, and many other options like that should actually make Azindel really interesting. I'm excited to show off the art for that one when it shows up, but yeah, so we do actually have information on all of those cards. Yeah, and Azindel is going to be a really interesting one. I think that he doesn't have, of course, the ability to influence the board in any way, and that's something you have to be a little bit frightened of. But Shadow has a lot of late-game cards, Vara, Azindel's Gift, Touch of the Umbran, and Last Word, along with all of the fun stuff that you can do with lots and lots of time power, such as play Azindel, get into your Mystic Ascendants faster. I think Azindel is the card that's going to most immediately belong as soon as he comes out, because Xenon is already an archetype that's worth supporting, and as a promo card to support that archetype, I think that that's pretty cool. So we have our first opposing color pair cards. There's a Xenon card, so Shadow and Time is now something that has a supported hybrid card. There is a Praxis card, and the Praxis card is pretty cool, so you can do some cool things with tokens and have some really fun times with Praxis tokens. I think that'll be really interesting. And there is, of course, a Huru card, and the Huru card is a ninja, which I'm actually really quite delighted with. The owls have the ninjas. The owls have their own personal array of ninjas. I think that's a pretty nice lore touch, and it should be really cool. I would recommend that you go ahead and check out the Azindel's Way promo page. There will be a link in the description. It's really cool, and obviously a little bit more of the lore snippets are in there. Hopefully we will see some cool things as a result of this particular list, and I can't wait to show off these cards in some new decks. We've been away for a while. I have been moving house. I have not had internet, and it's been just crazy hectic with a new job and a new home and a lot of new things. But I am fully intent on making a lot of more videos for you guys, and you'll be seeing some of those very, very soon. I promise. We're going to go work on the next one now, so I will see you guys probably in a day or so. And have a good time, good games out there, and see you next time.